Tonight, an inquiry is launched into Scotland's supply chain issues. The retail industry is warning about shortages over Christmas and a rise in prices. Also making the headlines tonight, as A&E waiting times hit their worst level on record, a patient group warns the picture is set to get worse over winter.
Who knows what's going to happen this winter? It is actually on the point of crisis.
As we throw away more than 11 million tonnes of rubbish each year, is Scotland on track to meet its recycling targets? And it's another late show for Scotland as they secure a vital World Cup qualifying win in the Faroe Islands. Good evening, I'm Norman MacLeod and this is the STV News at 6 live from Aberdeen. Major labour shortages and rising costs are putting extreme pressure on a range of industries, from farming to retail. Now, a Holyrood inquiry will look at the major challenges facing Scotland's supply chain and how to solve them. The committee will consider skills gaps and recruitment problems, weaknesses in the system and the struggles faced by importers and exporters. Kay Nicholson spoke to those at the sharp end about the extent of the crisis.
Every week, Robin sends up to 200 pigs off to the slaughterhouse. But recently he's had to keep them for longer due to a shortage of butchers. It costs more to feed the pigs, the market price has dropped, and there are heavy penalties for overweight pigs not meeting supermarket requirements.
When pigs are out of spec, they don't fit in the supermarket trays that they're designed for, and so therefore when they send the pigs to market, they get penalised heavily, very heavily.
Some people might think of a shortage of butchers as, the butchers they see on the high street, but it's actually those in abattoirs, slaughterhouses, behind the scenes. What do you think needs to be done to fill that shortage of staff?
We've relied quite heavily on butchers perhaps from Eastern Europe, and because of the circumstance with COVID, people going back home all of a sudden, and ageing workforce all of a sudden, there's less butchers in the processing halls. It's a very skilled job, the butcher's job. You can't just bring somebody in and train them overnight. The government were talking about a 3-month visa, 12 months the minimum. Nobody's going to come here for 3 months. We need to get them here for a long time.
Sarah and her team always want to have the freshest fruit and veg on offer in their shop, but weaknesses elsewhere in the supply chain are causing problems.
Sometimes when you get to the market, you go around the suppliers to see what your orders come in, and you've got to think on your feet, okay, well, I can't get that from there, maybe someone else has managed to get it, or then prices increase because there's less there and there's still the demand for it, so then you've got to pay more for it. Suppliers at the market, they can't get the produce in to sell. Sometimes by the time it does come in, it's no good to sell, so then that's who takes the hit on that. So yeah, a bit frustrating.
Driver shortages are a recurring theme, and attracting new people to the industry isn't easy.
The situation is extremely concerning. This has been a perfect storm. We've had Brexit and then we had COVID, and what that's meant is that a lot of lorry drivers have decided to surrender their licence. They've decided to call it a day. It has also meant that there's been huge delays in testing for HGVs, with DVSA shutting down essentially for 9 months. So it's caused this huge backlog, and not only that, but we have also had the issue of Eastern Europeans going back to either their home country or to other European countries.
All these concerns and more will be covered by an inquiry announced by Holyrood today. Businesses from across the country are being encouraged to have their say on how the supply chain can recover to help Scotland's economy thrive. Kay Nicholson, STV News.
And you can see more on that report on Scotland Tonight at 7:30 tomorrow. As A&E waiting times hit their worst level on record, a patient group is warning the picture is set to get worse over winter. Just over 70% were attended within the government's 4-hour target. Among the worst for waiting times was Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Nicola McCallie is there for us now. Nicola.
Well, yes, the government sets targets for how quickly people should be seen and receive treatment at accident and emergency departments across Scotland, and it releases these figures every week. Now, the latest findings make for some quite grim reading, because across Scotland, just over 70% were able to be seen within this 4-hour time frame. And here at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, that dropped further to just over 64%. Now, patient groups say that that's not just as a result of the ongoing pandemic. They say that pressure has been building on the NHS across Scotland for decades, and they're warning that it's likely to get worse over the winter.
The amount of, let's say, straightforward surgery and things will be put off. The waiting list will increase for non-urgent operations in order to be able to put the resources into seeing patients in an emergency situation, and that includes all sorts of A&E, but also acute medical and acute surgical patients. And who knows what's going to happen this winter? It is actually on the point of crisis.
Managers and politicians tend to think that efficiency is everything working full out all the time, all the beds occupied 100% of the time, all the theatres occupied all the time. That is not the case. The most efficient way is to have sufficient slack built in so that staff can have off time, they can have training, they can have education, and to allow people to recover from the hard work.
Well, NHS Grampian says it apologises to anyone who has been affected by this. It says that, like the rest of the NHS right across Scotland, it has faced unprecedented pressures due to the ongoing pandemic, and as a result it hasn't been able to treat as many people as it would like to. It does want to reassure anyone, however, that if they face a life-threatening situation, they would be an utmost priority, and it says that its staff are continuing to work extremely hard.
OK, Nicola, thank you. Women living with secondary breast cancer say a lack of knowledge and awareness of the disease is having deadly consequences. The incurable condition takes the lives of around 1,000 people every month. But 2 in 5 of us have never heard of it, a situation often referred to as stage 4 or metastatic breast cancer. Here's Laura Alderman.
When Tracy was diagnosed with primary breast cancer in 2017, she endured numerous intense rounds of radiotherapy, and eventually she beat it. But just 6 months later, after feeling a sharp pain in her side, she was told the cancer had come back. This time it had spread to her spine and it was incurable.
I was absolutely devastated. I didn't really know much about secondary breast cancer. And obviously I was just starting to live my life again. I felt that that was me over my treatment. You know, cancer was out of my life. But no, it wasn't.
Secondary breast cancer occurs when cancerous cells spread from the breast to other parts of the body, usually the bones, lungs and liver. There's no cure, but treatments can help to control the cancer and maintain good quality of life for as long as possible.
Most people are very surprised. They'll say, you don't look like you have cancer. Often they don't know what to say to you. They'll ask when treatment's going to finish, and you say, well, treatment will finish, well, it'll never finish, or it'll finish when I die.
Although around 35,000 people in the UK currently live with secondary breast cancer, a recent poll found 40% of the population had never heard of it. It's been called the forgotten form of cancer, and researchers say this is preventing new and potentially life-saving treatments from being developed.
What we need is an increase in the number of trials, but importantly, I think we also need an increase in the number of places where the trials are conducted, so that patients, wherever they live in Scotland or beyond, can have access to clinical trials addressing the range of needs that patients have with secondary breast cancer.
Tracy doesn't plan too far into the future, but hopes raising awareness and working with other friends who also have secondary breast cancer can help others live as well and as long as possible.
I'm constantly losing friends through it, and it's just not right. It's difficult, these friendships, and then you think one day that could be me, or it will be me.
Laura Alderman, STV News.
Now, in Scotland, we throw away more than 11 million tonnes of rubbish each year. The Scottish Government is aiming to achieve a 70% recycling rate by 2025. But figures show many local authorities will struggle to meet that target. As world leaders prepare to gather in Scotland for the COP26 conference, we've been looking at where our waste goes and how it's managed. Here's Hayley Boma.
Our waste is a mounting problem. Scotland generates more than 11 million tonnes of it every year. And when it comes to our recycling, it's a postcode lottery with how much of our waste gets repurposed. And even then, figures suggest Scotland exports more than 900,000 tonnes of waste to Europe and beyond. What we generate causes problems for the environment around us and our climate.
There is more and more technology, science now, to allow us to get the materials to a state that can be used as feedstock for producing something else. And this is why it's so important science development. We need to have research. There is a growing appetite in a very conscious community that wants to choose the right thing. We need that.
Everything that we have, wear or consume will have some form of waste associated with it. And when we start to look at where it goes or where it doesn't, as the case may be, the problem may seem overwhelming. But waste experts say there are simpler solutions to deal with our waste. One idea is to build plants where rubbish can be processed and repurposed on site, rather than sending it to different locations or even abroad, reducing the amount of carbon used to deal with it.
The whole idea, I think, is to build infrastructure in Scotland. We're trying to build the infrastructure here on site. A lot of the plastics over many years have been going to places like China, for example, because that's where the market was. That market is now no longer available. In many ways, been forced to look at other options. Once that starts to build across the country, I think we'll be much more self-sufficient and much more able to meet these sort of net zero targets.
New regulations are making it harder to put our waste into landfill, and household recycling rates are up in Scotland. Over the last decade, the amount we put into landfill from our homes has reduced by nearly half. But there is still some waste which cannot be recycled. Incineration is an option. This is the new incineration plant in Dundee, which burns 600 tonnes of waste a day to produce heating for homes and businesses in Tayside. MVV, who run the plant, say by the time the waste is burned, the only byproduct is ash, which can be used for road construction. Harmful fumes are treated before they're released into the atmosphere, so only hot air is emitted. It's one of 5 in Scotland, but this process has been met by caution from environmental groups who say they threaten recycling targets and emit too much carbon.
It can reduce the air quality, so there are health concerns to people who live locally. And then secondly, it can affect our recycling rates. So we see that in countries which have high levels of incineration, they tend to have lower levels of recycling rates. For every tonne of waste that is burned, that produces nearly a tonne of greenhouse gases.
The problems around our waste won't go away overnight, but as we work towards better and more efficient solutions to deal with it, perhaps the best thing that we can do in the meantime is to waste less. Hayley Bummer, STV News.
The Scottish Government has been urged to set up a peer support network for asylum seekers who are facing extreme forms of poverty. A report by the Red Cross and the Refugee Survival Trust found asylum seekers are most at risk of destitution during their first 6 months in the UK. Campaigners say a support network would allow those going through the system to seek advice from others.
They can give some of that expert advice that maybe an organisation like the British Red Cross wouldn't be able to provide, where they could explain to somebody actually what it felt like to be in the asylum system, what it feels like to go for that interview with the Home Office.
The Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry has heard that pupils at Gordonston School were feral and regularly showed racist and sexist behaviour. The woman, whose anonymity was protected, attended the Murray School and its prep school, Aberlour House, in 1979 and the early 1980s. She said teachers at both schools showed a lack of boundaries, which left her feeling unsafe. The inquiry continues. Elgin is vying to become the UK's newest city. It's competing with several other Scottish towns as part of celebrations to mark the Queen's 70 years on the throne. And local support is strong in the belief it could reap royal rewards. Here's Ian Ramage.
Being blessed with a cathedral once guaranteed membership of an exclusive club, but now officially Elgin is merely a town. That could change next year. Public pressures convinced Murray Council to enter a civic honours competition as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations to become Scotland's 8th city. Oban, Dumfries and Dunfermline are also contenders.
You know, we're obviously known for having a football club with the name Elgin City, and all our road signs coming into the town say Elgin City and Royal Borough. So, you know, all of these things point to it being something I think that people have wanted for a long time, and I think we're very deserving of.
It's a community-led campaign with high hopes.
You know, we've got this A95 running south with a huge amount of distillery traffic on it, very desperately needing upgraded. If we get city status, it might not, but it might help towards that sort of improvements. And any benefits coming to Elgin would truly permeate right across Murray.
The contest runs until December. The key elements: civic pride, history and a sense of community. Government ministers will ultimately make recommendations to the Queen. Elgin's business community is optimistic.
We've got the Mother Growth Deal coming along in the master plan. Elgin is going to be the place to be. We've had so many smaller businesses opening up, and we think if they can see the benefits of being in Elgin, it would be tremendously amazing. Then get bigger people, then that's more footfall for the smaller businesses and more just footfall overall.
Taking soundings here in Elgin, you can tell there's considerable confusion about its current status. But one thing is clear, there's also overwhelming support for the venture for it to become officially recognised as a city.
It may be recognised more because of being declared a city.
Well, yes, I think Elgin needs to
up its game a bit.
Up its game, yes.
When we came here 40 years ago, it was a city because of the cathedral, and I kind of still think of it as a city.
One corner of Elgin has no doubts.
And we are like a city. I mean, we've got so many internationally known businesses. I mean, you just look across the road where we all would go to McPhail's, Baxter's, Walker's, you know, Johnson's. I mean, internationally known companies that when you go to airports, you walk past, you always see Baxter's Jam, Walker's Scarves, you know, Gordon McPhail's whiskies, everything. You know, we are there anyway. I think it just should be ticking a box, basically.
City status was bestowed on the Highland capital in 2000 as part of Her Majesty's Golden Jubilee. City Provost Helen Carmichael has no doubt the upgrade helped Inverness secure multi-million-pound public and private investment, boosting tourism and employment across the region. Elgin should learn its fate at the turn of the year. Ian Ramage, STV News.
Offshore Wind Power Limited is looking at the production of green hydrogen on an industrial scale on the island of Flotta in Orkney. A consortium has submitted a proposal to the Crown Estate to develop an area west of the islands. If successful, the company could deliver renewable power to hydrogen at the Flotta terminal.
It's got the potential to grow much further beyond. I mean, for many years through the island of Flotta, we have exported 1/10 of the oil that's come out of the North Sea through tanker. It's possible that we could be able to do that in the future. Green hydrogen way, or even other fuels like ammonia that could be developed in significant volume in the same way we've done with oil.
Murray Council is to offer the flu vaccine to staff to cut winter absence rates. Around a quarter of the council's workforce aren't eligible for the free jab, but now 1,200 staff will be offered a voucher. It entitles them to the vaccine at a cost of around £12,000 to the council. A teenager who has chronic pain and uses a wheelchair says she's found her place after taking up the bagpipes. 14-year-old Katie Robertson, who has scoliosis and arthritis, won 2 awards at the Royal National Mode. She only learned to play this year. The teenager says the instrument has given her a newfound confidence.
I just feel so confident when I'm playing for people, and it's just such an amazing experience. I honestly cannot describe how happy it makes me feel. Every chance I get, I'm out, and I just love playing for people, love playing my tunes. I'm not going to let anything stop me from playing.
Now there's a change on the way weather-wise. Here's Sean with a look at the details.
Well, the weather's going to turn a little bit unsettled tomorrow, rather windy, wet and also a lot colder as well. But then it settles back down Friday into Saturday. A lot of dry and bright weather around. So colder air heading our way tomorrow and then turning more unsettled as we head through the weekend. We're back to southerlies and milder air. So over the next few days, still a bit mixed. Let's have a look.
Blue skies and sunshine are in the forecast. TUI sponsors STV weather.
Well, this evening's forecast, I'm going to start off over Iceland. A real split there today, mild in the southern half, cold in the north. But they've got that colder air moving its way southwards through the night. Where you can see these switch in the wind arrows here, that is where we've got a cold front with rain. And this is all heading our way, along with that colder air behind it. So turning a lot colder from the north tomorrow, and tomorrow night will be cold and frosty. But tonight, a very mild night to come. We'll still hang on to a lot of cloud and scattered showers, particularly so across the Northern Isles, the North and the West Highlands and the Hebrides. Best of the clearer weather, the drier weather tonight across lights of Aberdeenshire, Perthshire, Dundee, Angus and also Fife. But temperatures, it is going to be very different tomorrow night. You can take off the first figures there for tomorrow night, by about 2-3 degrees Celsius, but tonight 10 to 12 is still 54 in Fahrenheit. So there's a little cold front I showed you just a wee second ago across Iceland. Tomorrow morning it will be pushing into the north, so we'll start to see that colder air coming into the Northern Isles, along with plenty of rain through the first half of the day, some on the heavy side, but brighter skies coming in later on to northern and northwestern parts, along with that colder air, and we'll have a strong wind, so we'll even feel colder in that wind, and that rain spreading south across all parts. So a chilly night to come tomorrow night, a rather cold day on Friday, temperatures around 8 or 9 degrees, but for most of us dry with some bright spells. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV weather.
I hope you followed that, and that's where we have to leave it for this Wednesday evening. If you missed anything tonight, you can see the programme again on the STV player. Have a good evening.